Greetings everyone, this is Rambling Collector, back here with another book review for all of you today. And this one is going to be special because I actually spent the entire week reading this novel because I just could not put it down at all. So, for today, we'll be going back to another indie author who is an excellent writer that I've had the courtesy of meeting in person. Today, we'll be talking about the novel Exile of the Sky God by Anastasia. So, let's talk about it. So first off, this is not the first work that I have read and reviewed by Anastasia. My first review of their work was actually through the series Fluorescence, which I used as my 500 subscriber special. But to focus on this novel here, and yes, this is a novel, not a series. I checked, believe me. So, Exile of the Sky God is focused on Horus, the god of the sky, from ancient Egyptian mythology. And I must say, I have not read many books that have focused on Egyptian mythology. The only primary example that I can think of is Rick Riordan's 3-book series, The Kane Chronicles. But this one here does not present them as half-blood children meeting the Egyptian gods. This is more focused on the Egyptian gods themselves, more specifically Horus, and I've got to say, that is a very interesting plotline that I don't think I've seen any author do, at least not that I'm aware of. But that is one of the biggest highlights of this novel, is that it gives a great focus on the Egyptian pantheon of gods, as well as life itself during ancient Egypt, which we do get glimpses of here and there throughout the novel. But one of the biggest things that this focuses on is Horus himself breaking the laws of the gods by committing murder and showing favor to another. And the main reason for this is because Horus himself is a new young god, trying to show humanity his presence and get them to have faith in him, just as they do all the other Egyptian gods, most especially Ra, whom Horus throughout this novel has a very personal vendetta against, and I can honestly not blame him due to his interactions with the King of the Gods and Ra. And his whole premise is that he seeks followers, but one of the biggest mistakes he makes is by showing favor to one of the god's wives, most specifically the head priestess of Ra's temple, Zara. And first of all, I love how over the course of this novel we see Horus sort of exploring his own powers, but we definitely see how he is, over the course of the novel, even as a god, falling for the head priestess Zara, specifically wanting her as one of his main followers. And how he does this is not through some compulsion or anything like that, it's simply by showing her kindness. At one point, Zara actually gets very heavily burned by a fire after 2 cats seemingly knock over a torch. But what does Horus do? He takes time out of his day to heal her wounds, because he's so focused on her in particular. But this is a big no-no among the pantheon of the gods, because there are 2 main rules, that being, you must not show favor to another, as well as you cannot commit murder, which Horus does by complete accident, but that does not matter in the eyes of the gods, especially considering that this particular human was a follower of Set, the Egyptian god of chaos. Now, after all of this, Horus is exiled from his godly power. He is stripped of his abilities and forced to live out his days as a human. But I feel like this is actually one of the greatest things the gods did for him, as it allowed Horus to explore his humanity. And that is definitely one of the main themes here throughout the novel, is the understanding of humanity, the emotional understanding. Because Horus throughout his time as a human learns things such as pain, grief, love, loss, happiness. All of this he learns from his brief time as a human throughout the novel. And even when he has the opportunity to become a god again, he gains godlike power, but chooses to retain his human form, so as to make sure to not forget the lessons that he has learned from Zara and his time among the mortals of what it means to actually be human, to not lose those emotional attachments that he has learned. And this also harkens to a major lesson throughout this novel, that being the downfall of major characters through hubris or great pride. Horus, in the beginning, was not that likable of a character. Yes, he was an underdog, but he also had this underlying sense of arrogance due to just how powerful he was. He had actually had thoughts of overthrowing Ra, trying to prove himself as the strongest god simply because he was the god of the sky, whereas Ra was the god of the sun. But you can definitely tell there is this underlying arrogance to him. But when he is stripped of it, he is left to be humiliated, and learning how to be a human gives him humility and humbles him, giving him wisdom. The opposite of this is, of course, Ra, who is not a nice character in this novel at all, for the main reason being that Ra himself is very prideful. He has remained as the strongest of the Egyptian gods for so long, and no one has ever questioned him. He views humankind not as individual people, but rather as sheep, and the gods as shepherds. And I've got to say, his arrogance winds up being his greatest downfall, especially near the end of the novel, which I will explain here in a little bit in the next segment, Random Thoughts. But, okay, I want to say this right now. Horus's romantic relationship that he builds with Zara over the course of the novel was so freaking sweet and wholesome. You can tell that Horus genuinely cares for her. Even as a god, he is looking out for her, just caring for her, wanting to convert her to his first major follower. But more than that, as a human, he learns to explore his new feelings for her. And it was very wholesome. And I definitely needed it after my last review with Reverie, which that one left a very sour taste in my mouth. But more than that, we also see the exploration of Horus's relationship with his fellow gods, such as Bastet, someone who he views as his greatest friend, but also as a mother figure for him. His mother Isis, his brother Anubis, his uncle Set, his father Osiris, and of course, Ra. Set and Ra were definitely the most antagonistic relationships throughout the novel, with Set serving as the primary antagonist, with Ra serving as the secondary antagonist. Because Set was some of the main instigators for Horus's conflict, specifically sending followers to attack Exile, thus provoking Horus to commit murder, as well as having Horus become poisoned by his bite. And more than that, we even see that Set is a coward, because when he finally has that confrontation with Horus near the end of the novel, after ripping out Osiris's heart, flinging it into the river, or at least into the temple of Isis, and we see that just the fact that he is very petty. At one point, he is at Horus's mercy, and he begs and pleads for his life, trying to use manipulation, because that is just how he is. And in the end, he actually gets a taste of his own medicine when Horus winds up turning Set into a mortal, forcing him to come to terms with his weakness as a mortal. So it's kind of ironic seeing Set get a taste of his own medicine, and even more so with Ra, which I will explain here in a bit. So, moving on to random thoughts here. So, allow me to ramble about this for a bit. I absolutely loved the final ending of this novel, where Horus goes to confront Ra. After defeating Set, exiling him as a mortal, he goes to meet Ra. And Ra, of course, is extremely arrogant, as always, thinking, have you really come here to challenge me in my court after you've just exiled my top advisor? Only for Horus to straight up call Ra out on his hubris and constantly turning a blind eye to Set's actions. And more than that, he actually proves Ra is incapable as king of the gods, because he goes on to call Ra out on the fact that he does not understand humanity or emotions. He doesn't confront Ra in this big final battle, proving Ra was like the final villain all along. No. He just calls Ra out on his hypocrisy and his hubris by stating, "Mighty God Ra, do you know what pain is, or love, or sorrow, or grief? All of which are human emotions that Ra does not connect with because he, in his hubris, views humans as simple sheep." And over the course of that final segment, we actually see Ra being vanquished, not through overwhelming power, but through words. Horus actually manages to convince the other gods that Ra is not a good king anymore, and thus their faith in Ra is so shaken that Ra himself fades out of existence completely. And that actually shocked me. I'm not even gonna lie. I mean, Set as the secondary antagonist is what I would have expected, but Ra being the secondary was a trip, and having him be defeated not with swords or magic, but with words, was so impactful. Set was taken down and humiliated. He was not killed. He was humiliated. Ra even more so. To the point of non-existence, though. That was something else. And, okay, I need to rave about this for a bit, especially with P. Anastasia's writings, whom I am very excited to read more of their works. With Anastasia's writings, I want to say that there's a lot that I have noticed here. More importantly, the focus is on humanity, but also emotions. While the writing is a bit more slowly paced, I feel like that allows you to really connect with the characters more. You feel and you understand these characters so very well because the author takes the time to allow you to connect with them. By pacing the writing out a little bit slower, allowing it to build up over time, it allows you that chance to really understand these characters and empathize with them. It makes them feel real on a fundamental level because you have met people like this. Hell, with Fluorescence, I couldn't put the book down either. Same with Exile the Sky God. Both instances allowed me to feel emotionally attached to these characters, which is why I cannot wait to read Fates Aflame at some point, or even Dark Diaries, which focuses on vampires. Anastasia thus far has not disappointed, and I cannot wait to read more. But once again, harboring back to the questioning of humanity, that emotional state that we all have, I love how Anastasia brings those struggles to life. That realization of emotions, the love, hate, anger, all of it is addressed and done beautifully well in writing. Okay, and I think I've rambled on enough. You all should know the overall score, but let's get to it. So my personal score for Exile the Sky God would be a solid 10 out of 10. Despite being a short 227 pages, it pulls you in with its great exploration of Egyptian mythology, as well as the characters that it allows you to connect with. Now, if you guys are interested in some Egyptian mythology, if you really want to see a story from the point of view of gods, I cannot recommend this story enough. If you want to see a very wholesome and very sweet romance between a priestess and a god, check this novel out as well. It will definitely leave you feeling wholesome, heartfelt. And honestly, I'm very excited to read more of Anastasia's works in the future at some point, to read and review them. But if you guys are interested in checking out some of the other indie authors that I have reviewed in the past, go ahead and check out the playlist for their works here. Or, if you are interested to learn more about some of the general books that I have reviewed, feel free to click the link to that playlist as well, as you will see here. And once again, you guys, thank you so much for listening to this crazy man's ramblings. It really means a lot to me that you took the time out of your day to watch this little podcast of mine. And if you have any suggestions for future reads in the future that I should check out and review, please feel free to let me know. I'm always eager for a new challenge. And more importantly, I want to hear your thoughts on this review as well. If you have any comments on it, please feel free to leave a comment down below. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like as well. And if you're interested to see more of my book reviews in the future, why not subscribe? Once again, thank you so much for listening. This is Rambling Collector, signing off for now. Have a great day, my fellow readers.